Okay, so the artwork I'll be using for this tutorial is going to come from Freepik.com. I'm going to put a link in the description below so you can go check them out. You can get everything from vectors to photographs, Photoshop files. They have 3D assets, fonts, things like that. And this is a subscription-based site. However, you don't necessarily have to have an account with them or pay anything. Check out the asset that you're downloading. Sometimes all you have to do is give an attribution to the creator. But there are a few points to this tutorial. One of them certainly is to show you how you can take 2D artwork and create a 3D scene in After Effects, but also want to show you how you can work in Illustrator. There will no doubt come times in your career as a motion graphic designer where you'll need to bring something into Illustrator and maybe take apart layers or change colors or do things like that. So I'm going to show you some of the tricks that I've learned over the years and just some really quick and simple ways that you can take Illustrator files and bring them into After Effects in a very, very quick and simple way. I'll also be showing you how you can convert these vector layers into shape layers, and then that just gives you so much more control and power over these assets. Here we are at freepik.com. Choose vectors because I want vector art. Type in mountains. Scroll through here and pick anything that you like, but the one I'm looking for is right here, spring landscape. So I'm going to click download, save that. Show in Finder, double click this spring landscape zip. If you're on a PC, this is the same thing as unzipping. You get several different formats. You don't always get an Illustrator file with these, but if you get an EPS, just make sure that you save it as an Illustrator file. I'm just going to bring in my Illustrator file since we'll be working in Illustrator. Command 0, it will center up your scene right here in your comp view. The way the Illustrator is laid out is a little bit different than After Effects, but there are some things that are similar. Right now we only have these two layers, and I'm going to rename these as we go along. So this is our sky right here. If you open that up, you can see it's just a rectangle. So everything else is in this objects folder. And now we need to separate this out. The way that you do that is select the objects layer, and then go to this little button right here with these three lines, and then choose Release to Layers Sequence. Once you do that, now you can pull these layers out. Then I like to just get rid of any layers that I don't need. This first layer here is going to be our foreground bush. Layer 4 here, that's also a foreground bush. And then this layer 5, that's our main scene. And then this layer 6 is going to contain our mountains, our clouds, and our sun. Go down to this create new layer icon. We need to add in a group of clouds. Then we have a mass of clouds. We have a sun and we have mountains. This ellipse right here is clearly our sun. So we can grab this ellipse, pull it up to layer 7, drop it in there, and rename it sun. Notice I have this cursor right here selected. This will select individual layers. As you can see, it's called the direct selection tool. So I can click on this cloud and it selects only that cloud. If you have this cursor selected, this is the selection tool. If I click anything, it grabs everything in that layer. So we want to make sure we're using the direct selection tool. So if I click this cloud right here, we can see that this lights up. So I'm going to go up here and drop into layer 8, and I'm just going to put all my clouds in the same group. So I'm going to call this clouds. And if I click this group here, we can see that it lights up right here. And this last cloud here is going to be this path. So the only thing we have left now are the mountains and this group of clouds back there. So I just selected that group of clouds, and as you can see, it's this path right here. So I'm going to just drag that up to layer 9. I'm going to call that massive clouds. This is going to be all of our mountains. Rename layer 6 to mountains. So we want our massive clouds to go behind our mountains. This layer 10, we don't need that any longer. Once you have everything separated the way you want it, go to File, Save As. If this was an EPS file, you would need to change the format right here to AI. Since this was an AI file, it's going to save it as an AI file. And then I'm just going to rename this main scene and then click Save. And it's going to bring up this panel right here. Just go ahead and click OK. Minimize our Illustrator, get rid of our browser, go to File, Import File. So this is our main scene right here, and you can import this as either footage, composition, retain layer sizes, or composition. Since this is a layered file, you do not want to select footage because that will come in as one layer. If I bring this in as just a composition, we can go into the main scene and then say, like, if you click this foreground bush, it's right here. But then when you select a layer, you can see our anchor point is up here and it includes the entire artboard. That's not really an effective way for us to edit. Back out of that and go back up to File, Import, File. And this time I want to choose the main scene, but bring it in, Composition, Retain Layer Sizes. And if we open that up, we can click into our main scene now. And if I click this foreground bush, we can see now that it doesn't contain the artboard, but it just contains this area that the image takes up. and it centers our anchor point right where we need it. So this is exactly what we want. Command K, we can see that it's 750 by 500. So I want to resize this to 1920 by 1080, and I'm going to just make this 30 frames, 10 seconds long. One of the first things I do whenever I bring in an Illustrator or EPS file, I select all of them and then rasterize it. Shift Command Option Y to bring in a null object, grab all these layers, parent it to that null object, bring in my position and scale, and just resize this till it's full screen. If I select all these layers now and I take off the rasterization, you can see that the quality is a lot lower. And you can blow this up literally to any size you want and keep that full quality. Now let's make all these layers 3D, and I'm going to add in a camera, so Shift Command Option C, and we can just click OK. Shift Command Option Y for a null object. So I'm going to call this Cam Control. I'm going to make that 3D and then link that up. So now there are a few layers I know out of the gate that I can convert to shape layers. And the benefit of that is it gives you complete control over everything of that layer. Select a sky layer. I'm going to solo that. So now if I right click and go to create shapes from vector, this now turns this into a shape layer. So now I can get rid of that Illustrator layer and we can open up our sky layer and we have a shape layer like any other. We can now change this fill color. We can add in gradients. We can do anything else like that we want. So there are benefits to converting these to shape layers. Sometimes you can't convert them. And if you bring over a vector with a gradient, fill, or stroke, it's going to turn that color gray. But as long as it's a solid, you should be fine. So there are a few others that I can turn into shape layers, like our sun. Right click, create shapes from vector, and get rid of that layer there. So now our sun layer is just a shape layer. I can also do the same thing for our massive clouds. Also for clouds, we can create shapes from vector. And then the other one was going to be our mountains. So I can right click, create shapes from vector. If we open that up and go to our contents, we can see we have all these groups. And as you click through them, you can see the path light up. You can change the color if you'd like. Click on path, you can change the shape of these. So converting these to shape layers really is beneficial. There are times you don't necessarily want to do that. Like with this main scene here, there's so many elements in this main scene. If I were to convert that to a shape layer, we would have probably hundreds of groups and it would just get really, really overwhelming and cumbersome. Same thing for these foreground bushes. So I'm going to leave these as vector layers and the rest of these we can work with as shape layers. So let's take our sky layer, hit P for position, and I'm just going to move this back 2000 pixels. S for scale, and since it's a shape layer, we can increase this as big as we want. For our massive clouds, I want this to be right behind that. So we'll say maybe 1500, and let me bring up my position on sky so that way we can kind of see the comparison of these. And then again, we can increase the size of this. We're going to want to push our mountains back, maybe 750 for these. So that way it's a little bit more in the foreground, but still pushed away from us. So as long as you have a vector that's been rasterized or you have a shape layer, you can adjust these any way you'd like. So our sky layer is way back here at 2000. So I'm going to put my sun back there as well. This is kind of a small sun for this scene. So I'm going to actually increase this and make it almost like a sunrise or a sunset kind of a thing. For these clouds, I'm going to hit P for position, push this back 1250. So that way they're not completely pushed all the way back, but they're back far enough. And just increase the size of these clouds. We want our main scene to be right where it is in the middle, but we want our foreground bushes, P for position. Let's pull these towards us. So that way they're a lot closer to us. And when we start to animate this, you'll see the value of what we're doing. Command or Control A to select all of those and close that up. We'll grab this clouds layer, hit P for position. I'm going to put a keyframe for that and move this over to the left a little bit. Go down to the end of our animation and let's just move this forward. So that way we have these clouds kind of animating across our sky. So the thing that's really going to sell this is going to be what we do with our camera control. Bring up position and rotation on our camera control. I'm going to put keyframe for position and also for X and Y rotation. X rotation, let's make this 2 degrees. For our Y rotation, let's make this -4. Grab these bushes, pull them down a little bit. We can pull this one off over to the left more, this one off over to the right. Take our sky outline and make that even larger because this is just a shape. Massive clouds outline, we can increase that even more. Adjust this position of this just to kind of pull it down a little bit. And then even for our mountains, increase that as well. Okay, and let's go down to the end of our animation and let's make some adjustments. We'll make our X rotation now -3 and our Y rotation we'll make 10. And then I'm going to push in on the position. If you click X rotation, you can right click and just do keyframe assistant time reverse, and it will reverse those two values. So that way it ends like something like that. And you can see we have that 3D depth already. So it's kind of like a camera is moving through this scene, and this is all 2D layers, but set back in 3D space. So I'm going to take our bushes, maybe increase them in size, so that way they're a lot closer. I'm going to put this back to full quality. Maybe we want our sun to be back a little bit further. We'll make this 2500, then also move our sky back 3000, bring up our scale. So a lot of this is kind of just things you'd have to do as you start to animate this and things that you think may look better over time. If I open up my mountain outline right here, open up contents, we have all of these groups. So I want to change the color of this. So if I open up group 4, now I can change this color. And then of course you want to take your other groups and do the same thing. Duplicate this mountain outline, and I'm going to bring up position and scale. Right click, go to transform, flip that horizontally. So now we can move this back 1300 pixels. We can increase the size, can offset it a little bit, go to effect, color correction, add in the curves, darken that a little bit so it's a little bit different shade of purple. And now see, I have these cloud layers that are actually coming in front of our mountain. So hit P for position, we can see that's at 1250, our mountain's at 1300 for this second mountain. For the first mountain, it's at 750. These clouds won't go in front of this front mountain, but they will go in front of this back mountain. So we can kind of play around with some of the physics of this. So I'm going to take my cloud outline layer, and let's go to Effect, Perspective, Drop Shadow. And then I'm just going to increase my distance so the shadows are going to fall onto the mountain. I'm going to increase my softness to maybe 75. I only want my shadow to fall on the mountain, not on the sky. And the way you can do that is take this clouds layer, duplicate that. This is going to be our cloud shadow. So we can take the position of cloud shadow, parent it to the position of clouds, and turn off those keyframes. With cloud shadow selected, if we solo that, we have this layer right here. We can see our drop shadow. If you choose shadow only, it will only show the shadow. So for the shadow layer, choose that shadow only. And then for the clouds layer, take the drop shadow off. Here's our back mountain. Go ahead and rename this back mountain alpha matte, our back mountain. Now it's going to turn off that layer because we're using it as an alpha matte, but just turn the back mountain layer back on. And now, as you can see, the shadow is only going to show up on top of that mountain. So I'm going to adjust my position just to show you what I'm talking about. You can see this shadow is showing up on our mountain, but it's not showing up in the sky anymore. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of color code some of this so that way it's easier to keep track of. I highly recommend that you take the time whenever you're editing to name your layers. Like Ben Marriott says, always label your layers. And then also color code for certain layers that it makes sense on. Our camera control and our camera, make this green. This null I'm going to rename to image control. I'm going to take my sun layer and I'm going to reposition this. Put a keyframe for position, and then we'll go down to the end here. Let me see, I'll move it up a little bit. Open up our camera control. Option click on the stopwatch for position. I like to add in just a little movement. So we put in a wiggle 0.5, 5. And I think the last thing I want to do with this is put a gradient ramp on this sky back here. Effects and presets and just type gradient ramp. Double click that. And then let's change some of these settings. The last thing to give it just a little bit more dimension, open up your camera options, turn your depth of field on. So I'm going to increase my aperture, focus distance. I'm going to turn down to about 1250. And so that's how you take 2D artwork and put it into a 3-dimensional scene, and you create what's called 2.5D animation. So the idea is that the layers themselves are 2D, but we are animating them through 3D space. And the more distance you have from your front layer to your back layer, the more depth and dimension you're going to get. I hope this tutorial helped you out and that you learned something new and useful. Make sure to come back next time for another tutorial that will expand your knowledge of After Effects while also teaching you some really cool tips, tricks, and shortcuts. Please comment, like, share, and subscribe, and click the bell so you're notified every time I upload a new video. Support our channel by getting your 7-minute AE merch today at our online store. And sign up for my Udemy course, The Power of Shape Layers, is guaranteed to make you a shape layer rockstar. The link to that course, to our 7-minute AE store, and the project files for this episode are all in the description below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.